folks. It's 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. This is the Tuesday, April 9th, 2024, meeting of the Hopkinton Conservation Commission. So we'll jump right into work session items. We have documents for review. Kim?
Yep. Notes. So we've got One Fox Hollow Road, an extension. And we've got 2 certificates of compliance associated with Maspinock Woods. That was a project that the order expired and then they refiled, so there's 2 COCs associated.
Okay. You want to pass those down and we'll sign them, or?
I was going to request that you authorize me to sign on your behalf.
Okay,
Just to
if I can,
simplify the process.
if I can get a motion to have Kim sign on behalf of the members present.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Okay, draft minutes review, February 6, 2024, and March 26, 2024. Any comments or questions from the commission? If I can get a motion to approve both sets of those minutes, please.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's awesome not having to do the roll call vote. Okay, 56 Downey Street, this is a violation discussion. Mr. Gold?
Yeah.
You can step up, sir. Good evening. So Kim, did you want to give us a little bit of background on what happened
Sure.
at the property, please?
So this site has an approved order of conditions for the construction of a single-family home. The commission did recently approve additionally an amendment to the project filing to include a dock. Part of the application, the original permit plan is in the back of your packet, the plans for the project. Part of the project was to do a restoration area, lakeside landscaping that we've been encouraging. Because the project was originally, the land was cleared in violation of the bylaw. And it was something that Anna and I had caught, stopped, and then that triggered the filing. So this restoration area was part of the filing application. Anna was driving around doing other site inspections, and she noticed that there appeared to be loam beyond the approved limit of work. So she took a look, we took a look. It looks like loam was loamy sand. It's really like a loamy sand that was spread out there. It was probably what was left over from the construction of the foundation, was kind of pushed down the slope to create, a nice smooth landscaped area. And so it went beyond that 50-foot no disturb and past the limit of work silt fence. The applicant has since installed plantings. So oops, sorry. I am rusty with this presentation. The original notice of violation and order of conditions required 8 replacement tree plantings with a minimum 8-foot height or 3-inch caliper. So the applicant has installed 4 red maples, approximately 5 feet in height and 1-inch caliper, 4 oaks, approximately 3 feet height and less than 1-inch caliper. In total, there's about 50 woody plantings, the majority of which are in the 50-foot no disturb. They include red maple, oak, speckled alder, winterberry, and blueberry. And then additionally, there's 8 perennial plantings. Some of them are native, some of them I've never heard of. Chocolate snake root, I have no idea what that is. Western nurseries might know. And then additionally, the applicant placed 1.5 pounds of conservation seed mix. We issued the notice of violation last week, April 4th or 2nd. And I took a look at it again today. I found all the additional plantings. It's my professional opinion at this point that scraping up this red loam may result in more damage than good. And obviously, you know, we're happy about the additional plantings, and the applicant has made an effort to try to comply ahead of the meeting. That being said, I'm not sure how many of the plantings will survive, because wetland plants were kind of planted in the upland. So, those may not do as well in that location. So there's a notice of violation. The violation just said come to the meeting to discuss. So the commission needs to discuss how to proceed and, you know, what direction to give the applicant to come into compliance.
So is that a recent picture there, Kim?
This was today.
Yeah. So it doesn't really look like the slope is stabilized that well.
No, I would say it's not stabilized very well.
Okay. So that's, one thing that the applicant needs to address with spring coming and, you know, some of the precipitation events we get. If that's not stabilized properly, you know, that's all gonna wash down into the lake. So, you know, I would recommend, so it was 1.5 pounds of seed mix that was spread out, Kim?
Yeah, it covers like 1,900 square feet. 1 pound covers around 1,900 square feet. And
I would suggest,
apart from that, I was communicating with Kim at all the points.
Yep.
But what happened was, I did not understand that landscaping is different from construction, because I was allowed to plant trees 10 feet from the lake. So I was not aware of the fact that I cannot go that far.
okay,
So this is a mistake which has been, and I was, every step of time, I was communicating with Kim about it. Like, I hope, Kim, I think so there's a miscommunication we had in between us regarding the work area. But I was communicating with you every single step of the time, so that I don't have any violation. And as Kim recommended, and she gave me a list of plants, so I went and ahead with another 30 plants. 30 additional plants. So initially I had 8 trees plus another 30 shrubs, and I added 30 more to it, the thing, plus the conservation seeds as well.
so 60 total for
68.
plants,
Yeah, plant 60, yes.
and then 12 trees,
8 trees, 9 trees.
9 trees. Okay, so the site, I think, needs to be stabilized, and I would suggest a hydro seed with a tackifier, because it's just not going to, you know, the hay that you have there. I just, with the slopes on the property, I don't think that's gonna hold, to be honest with you, and I just don't want you to be in another situation where you have another violation, then you have to, and then all the work you did, you know, gets washed down into the bottom of the slope.
I did put additional seeds on the top with the tack as well.
Okay,
I'm not sure that the seating will stay put.
Okay.
And
I can do
just
a
my
hydro
opinion,
seeding.
yeah, I would get a tackifier on it or something to cover it,
Okay.
just because it's a steep slope there,
Okay.
yeah.
okay. So, and, you know, again, thank you for the communication with Kim, staying in touch with her, putting the plantings in, and being proactive, we appreciate that. I guess there's a couple items for the commission, you know, one is the trees that were installed weren't the proper caliper, so is that something that needs to be addressed, or are we good with the size that was installed, or planted, excuse me? Or do we need, you know, a couple more trees?
The problem is the bigger size the trees, they cannot be transported from now to the site because it's so steep.
Right,
And there's no way we can take a 3 feet, like 10 feet high tree with like 2 or 3 people carrying down.
I had Anna model for size and height. She's unhappy about it.
okay, well, let me open it up to comments and questions from the commission members.
I have a question about the trees. Are they at least planted in the right spots?
The
And in fact,
overwhelming
if I
majority.
could follow,
yeah.
is there a chance you could put this on the screen? And when you say there was stuff put in the no disturb zone, could you kind of point out where on the map stuff was put? And then maybe you could point to the trees that are in the right spot, even if they're too small, which I think is disappointing.
So the original plot plan had all of the
The trees.
shrubs and trees concentrated here within about 15 feet, 25 feet. So these trees along the side of the parcel were planted, and then now, basically, I would say 40 feet to the edge of the lake, this is all planted at this point, kind of sporadically planted. So they're all within the 50-foot no disturb, except for maybe 2 red maples, which are up here.
How could you have gotten all those trees planted above? It seems like not possible.
Well, you did basically doubled the amount of plantings that we requested.
Will it be the same density close to the lake?
They're fairly dense close to the lake. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, you said some of the plantings are wetland plantings, but now they're upland. That would be in the area where your cursor is now.
Yeah.
So we don't know if those are gonna make it.
Okay. So, when is the house gonna be finished?
26th of April is the closing date.
The closing date? Okay. So, we don't want the new homeowner to be handed off the responsibility of taking care of the issues here. So the 26th is, 10 days away or whatever it is. I think we need to get the hydro seed down
I can get the hydro seed down.
sooner rather than later. And then I think there's gonna have to be an agreement between you and the homeowner that there'll be some continued monitoring on your part.
Okay.
Cause again, we don't want the homeowner to be on the hook for, future work if the plantings don't survive or if there's washout, that type of thing, okay? Kim, anything else?
Just wanted to verify with the commission that you're satisfied with the trees that were planted, because there is a condition in the order that where, the trees from the original violation needed to be mitigated for before occupancy, so that's number 1. And number 2, are you still happy with the PIB locations, kind of given the change of the layout here?
I'm good with the trees, because of the additional plantings that were put in.
Okay.
Where are the locations of the PIBs again? I'm sorry.
The PIBs are here.
So maybe we should move those to the east a little bit more? Is that your suggestion?
At this point, basically 40 feet to the lake is all planted. So I guess, does the commission want to insinuate that those plantings need to stay in perpetuity? Or are you okay with having them, right, as they're shown on this map, they're probably about 20 feet off the edge of the lake and about 5 to 10 feet off the edge of the BBW, which is here.
Yeah, because we don't want the homeowner coming in and cutting them all down, once they've grown out after a couple of years.
I think we just lose jurisdiction of them too, if they're outside the PIB.
I vote for moving the
Guy, and
PIB.
then they're- I mean, I
I don't know, move it up?
I
Absolute-
believe, yes, move it closer to the house.
Okay, we can do that, Kim.
How close?
Where is the edge of the new plantings where they're bulked?
So Anna and I measured off, it's 40 feet in the field. I mean, it's probably like right about here on this plan.
40
that might
feet
be a little
field.
bit too far, I think.
40 feet from the wet, from the.
From the water.
water.
We don't wanna take away the entire yard area, right? Maybe if we can kind of go halfway. Right in that area, does that seem reasonable to everyone?
Maybe just put it on the 25-foot buffer line, I think that's fair.
Establish the PIBs 20 or 25 feet off the bank.
And where are they now? How many feet?
They're not installed,
Where's the plan put them? How many feet?
let's scale it up, all of our printed plans are at half scale.
It looks like at most 10 feet.
Yeah. And it's a pretty small site, I don't wanna split it up.
They're currently at about 15.
I think 25 sounds reasonable.
I can,
Right.
Okay. So PIBs to be set 25 feet off the bank of the lake.
Is that
What's PIB?
a permanent immovable barrier? It's just a medallion that you put up that lets the homeowner know that, you know, the area from the medallion down to the lake is protected.
Okay.
I guess that's another good question. At this point, there's fresh loam, seed, and small sapling plantings. What would you like the PIB? Do you want to be more specific about what you're expecting for a PIB? There's not really anything to attach it to.
I sure am tired of PIBs being ignored. I think the more obvious we make it, the better it is. An attractive fence with the PIB markers on it.
I'd be afraid, I would just make sure to have a split, cause we still wanna,
Right.
access to the lake, yeah.
Yes. Fence
Maybe a
with gates.
split rail fence with the center part with the medallions. And a center opening.
Are you amendable to that?
But, the fence would go with the concrete at the bottom? Would I be allowed to do that? A fence would go with the
Like
concrete?
a, kind of a, I would suggest like a wooden split rail fence that looks nice. Like a cedar, type thing,
Okay.
pine.
But, when the post goes in the ground, it'll be attached with concrete or cement, something like that?
Yeah, I think that's
I
fine.
think this is in lieu of the post, right?
Yeah, so the medallion will be on the fence post. Are you talking about the fence post or the post that the medallion will go on?
The fence, yes.
I think it's okay to put you probably don't need to, but if you wanna put concrete in, just as long as it's in the post hole, and it's not spilling out.
Or a silt fence, which will block everything going into the lake.
The sill fence is up, right, Kim?
There are compost socks, so the intent is to have those until the area stabilizes, but the split rail fence is more of a permanent
Okay.
situation, yeah.
Kim and Anna can explain it to you.
I don't understand the fence, so.
I don't know if you can see it, just to try to help. That's a split rail.
Oh,
fence.
okay. Oh, awesome. I
Right.
can do
We're
that.
talking all about the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
But it'll have an opening in the middle so that you can get down to the lake,
okay.
so you don't have to jump over the fence
Yeah,
to
yeah,
access the lake.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, and then the
I'll make it
tackifier,
up.
and then the seed mix with the tackifier, if you can get that in, and it's for your benefit, because we're expecting rain, you just don't, again, you don't want all that washed, down into the lake, or down to the bottom of the slope, because then it's just gonna be more work for you. Okay, Mr. Golan? Yep.
Sorry, so just in summary, prior to the occupancy permit, we'll be looking for that seating with the tackifier and the split rail fence to be installed with the medallions. I can provide the medallions for you.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. And again, thanks for the communication with Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, new hearings, Town of Hopkinton, this is 9104 Hayden Row, a notice of intent for an addition. Actually, Anna, do you have the, or I can kind of wing it. Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. The Senior Center, 28 Mayhew Street, to hear all persons interested, notice of intent filed by the town of Hopkinton to construct an addition with associated site work. Location is 104 Hayden Row, Assessors Map 120, or U21, Block 7, Lot 0, and a portion of 90 Hayden Row, Assessors Map U21, Block 3, Lot 0. Good evening.
Good evening.
Get the whole crew here tonight.
Yeah, gang's all here.
Thank you.
For the record, my name's Claire Hogebaum. I'm with LEC Environmental Consultants. I'm a wetland scientist on the project. And joining me tonight is Steve Powers with Samiotis Engineers. He's the civil engineer on the project and is here to talk about the civil components and stormwater design of the project. Also joining me is Chris Eberly with Vertex, the project manager for this school project. We also have Rob Blanchard with Commodore Builders. He's the contractor for the project. And finally, behind us, cheering us on, is Tim Pearson, the directors of facility with the town of Hopkinton. Good evening. So I guess first off, I just want to go through the existing conditions of the site. I think most people are familiar with it, but just to give us a refresher, we were here before the commission over the winter for an ORAD. Yep, that's a good plan to start with. We submitted an ANRAD application to confirm wetland resource area boundaries on the site and in proximity to the site. But first and foremost, this property, sort of outlined in dark black line work, is 104 Hayden Row Street, and that hosts a majority of the Hopkins Elementary School development. We have the, oh, that'll be for late. Oh, that's actually good too. So we have the building itself in the eastern portion of that smaller parcel, and it's surrounded by pavement, parking lots. As you can see, Loop Road starts off of Hayden Row Street, providing access to the high school, continues south from the cursor, goes into the elementary school, and Loop Road exits in that southwestern portion of the site and just, as the name says, loops around. A portion of the development associated with Hopkins Elementary School does extend onto the larger parcel. That's 90 Hayden Row Street. So ultimately, our site does extend partially onto that parcel. That'll be important for our discussion later when we talk about riverfront area. But I just wanted to include this overall image showing the two parcels that the site is partially on. Again, we came to the commission a few months ago to receive confirmation of the wetland resource area boundaries. We confirmed, do you want to go back to that existing condition sheet? Perfect. We confirmed that bordering vegetated wetlands are within the northern and eastern portion of the property and a small segment in the southwestern portion of the property. So that places the 100-foot buffer zone onto, again, the northern and eastern portions of the site and the southwestern portion. During that review, we also confirmed that a USGS topographic mapped perennial stream is located in the very northern portion of that site. So the mean annual high water line was approved through the ORAD, and we show the 200-foot riverfront area within the northern portion of the site. And as you can see, the riverfront area is largely comprised of that bordering vegetated wetland. There's a good amount of forested upland as well, but there is a segment of that riverfront area that extends into existing manicured lawn that's utilized as a baseball field for the students, and general, play areas between the parking lot in the northern portion of the site. We also have the two existing detention basins for stormwater, one in the western portion and one in the northeastern portion of the site, just east of the Loop Road site entrance. I believe that sort of covers existing conditions. So ultimately, I'm going to pass things off to Chris to talk about the project, but it's generally including the addition of a two-story building that's going to be added on to the existing school building to the west. I think if you want to go to, just maybe the next sheet down will show the building addition. Chris, will that work for your
that'll work.
discussion? Okay, great. In addition to the school addition, there's going to be installation and reconfiguration of paved parking lots and improvements to the vehicular circulation around the site. We also have new athletic field and play areas that'll be utilizing the existing baseball field that I just spoke about and the existing conditions. Some new and reconfigured utilities, landscaping, associated grading with all of these features, and stormwater management infrastructure improvements and reconfigurations as well that Steve will get into after Chris goes into a bit more detailed discussion on the project itself.
Thank you. So as you may have heard in town already, the Hopkins project came about because of the increased enrollment that the school is experiencing. The Hopkins school currently is over capacity in terms of the number of students that it can support, and it's reached the point where it's required to have windowless classrooms as well as repurposing space that was originally for other uses for other classrooms. The project is intended to add a 28,000 square foot addition. The goal of that addition is to increase by about 10 classrooms and 2 PE spaces that will allow them to host 802 students. This is part of a study that began with the school committee in early January, where they reviewed the overall district to understand the expansion needs and to make a decision about the Elmwood project. They found that the Hopkins School was the highest need, and so this project arose out of that. The site development is largely focused on supporting the enlarged school, both in terms of providing adequate traffic. As you may know, if you have kids in the school, they often have to park at the edges of the driveways in order to support the number of cars that are there during the day. And so we're increasing the parking count for the increased enrollment. We'll be able to restore a lot of the preferred educational spaces as part of this process. And ultimately, we expect to add, if you look to the far left of the drawing there, that last little rectangle on the addition there, right there, is the modulars. Those would be existing modulars that exist at the Elmwood School now. Those would come approximately a year after we finish construction. So we would be looking at creating a phased plan. The school committee has engaged with Commodore Builders to serve as the construction manager for the project, and they have developed a phasing plan that would take a lot of the proposed parking area that is to the north of the building and create that early in the project as an asphalt area in order to provide both additional parking for mobilizing the construction, as well as to provide a paved play area for the students over the course of the year. The addition would begin, we expect, in as early as September of this year, and it would continue through February break of 2026, at which point it would open and house students while we do a remainder of the interior renovations. We expect that there'll be 2 major phases of interior renovations, which will occur in the summer of 2025 and then in February through the summer of 2026, with the modulars 1 year after that.
Kim, could you go one slide back? Again, Steve Powers, the civil engineers for the project. This is the site prep and erosion sediment control plan. I figured we'd start here and then work our way into the utilities grading and stormwater. This is coming out a little bit lighter on this. This is essentially what we're looking at for a limit of disturbance hatched area throughout most of the western portion of the site. The work that you see on the eastern portion of the site is really just a reconfiguration of the pedestrian walkways around the property, as well as some mill and overlay of the existing pavement, including the loop road. The pavement's in pretty poor condition overall, so if we're going to go through and really put a nice addition and renovate the school, we wanted to make sure the site infrastructure can accommodate it and looks nice as well. We are removing a chunk of parking to the western portion of the site, and then everything sort of skews to the western portion where the majority of work is getting done. But for the most part, we are keeping the eastern portion, including the access points to the rear of the school, the north of the school, plan up, and then to the southern portions of the school where we're adding a bus drop-off as well. Go two ahead. Yes. So this is the grading. Actually, if you can go one more. So this is the utilities plan, and it does show the grading. As I mentioned before, the original school, or the current school, is on the eastern portion of the site. It's not highlighted on the western portion as the proposed addition, as Chris spoke about. We are expanding the parking lot on the northern property to the west. That is a reason why we're in front of you. We are encroaching a bit into the 200-foot outer riparian zone, as well as a portion of the 100-foot buffer zone. We've configured everything to the best of our ability to stay out of that 75-foot buffer zone as well. One of the areas that we are encroaching a little bit into it in the northwest corner is really the outlet for the stormwater infiltration system that we're putting in to accommodate the increase in impervious area. The only reason for that is the grades. We're just trying to outlet and make sure we can daylight to that. So that is the only real encroachment into those inner buffer zones that we're proposing for the project. Go to the next one. This is essentially our stormwater management plan. We're meeting the Massachusetts stormwater management policy, as well as the town of Franklin stormwater bylaw. The infiltration system, as you can see, is right to the northwest of the proposed addition. We're proposing that under the existing, the reconfigured field. We're tying in the new stormwater conveyance system, which will be part of the western portion of the parking lot, running it through deep sump catch basins, stormwater quality units, and then discharging into the infiltration system to meet on-site detention requirements as well as infiltration requirements. And as I mentioned previously, that outlet is heading north into just inside the woods. It's right on the edge of where the disturbed area is now, so right at the edge of the woods. Currently, it's mostly lawn in those areas.
And we should note for the committee's understanding, the circles that are shown to the south of the infiltration system, we are pursuing a geothermal well field as part of this. That's a closed loop system, so we won't be taking water out of or returning water to the ground as part of that system.
How deep are the wells?
Currently 500 feet.
How many?
35.
Existing utilities, sanitary water will remain relatively the same. We're expanding the loops for the water around the building to make sure we could continue the loop, but tie into the existing system. There's a sanitary lift station on the eastern portion of the existing building. We'll be maintaining that and tying in the proposed addition into that area as well. And the last thing I want to mention with respect to the stormwater is in the southeastern corner, there's a depression in that area, and what we've tried to do is there is some allowance for existing drainage to be picked up in this low area on the southeastern portion, and then hydraulically connected across the road. What we're looking to do as part of this is really put in some low-impact development and include a rain garden in there. So we're going to improve that area, excavate it out a little bit, put in landscaping, planting materials with wet feet that can, again, provide additional stormwater quality to the area.
All
All
right.
right.
I'll jump back into, we have some landscaping features to talk through. Tim, I guess if you want to go down the sheet LP1-01, maybe 21 of this PDF. A little more, it's the hardscape plan. probably includes the exhibits, right? Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think that's it.
Yeah, so we'll just talk briefly about this one. We have the field space that I spoke about earlier, the athletic field space. That's going to be 240 feet by 170 feet. It's just large enough to accommodate an U10 soccer field with some runoff space as well. And this plan also shows sort of in the gray spotted hatching is the hardscape part of the plan. So the athletic field is surrounded by a 6-foot wide walking path that's going to accommodate for the students to run during PE classes and gym class, things like that. So that's going to be lined with asphalt. And a portion of that, I'll get into a graphic that shows the resource area boundaries a little more clearly, but the northwestern portion of that 6-foot wide walking path is within the 100-foot buffer zone, and a very small segment of it extends into the 75-foot. But again, the path and the athletic field itself is all proposed within existing manicured lawn. It's not going to extend into the existing tree line. There's no irrigation proposed with the athletic field either, as well. And as far as the planting plan goes, the landscape architect Traverse put together a very detailed planting plan that's provided on subsequent sheets within the plan set here, but this overall sheet generally shows that there's a series of scattered shade trees, perennial grasses, and perennial herbaceous cover that'll be provided throughout the school complex. Most importantly, what I want to note, which will come up later, is in the northern portion of the site, just under landscape plan to the left there. That's our proposed restoration area. It totals approximately, I have too many numbers on this page, 4,626 square feet, but that's where some resource areas overlap. So a portion of that's going to be in our riverfront area, a portion of that's going to be located in our 100-foot buffer zone to provide some restoration plantings for the work that we're proposing in both of those resource areas. I believe that's it. You spoke about the bioretention area in the southeast corner. That's going to have plantings in it as well and be improved. So with that, I think I'm ready to hop into.
One important note.
Yep.
I mentioned that the modulars are delayed by 1 year because they'll still be in use at Elmwood. So the plantings that immediately border the modular would not be in place at the time that we have certificate of occupancy on the building. Those would be something that would be developed as part of bringing the modulars over. We wanted to present it to you as a completed plan as opposed to presenting it as a separate entity because it's easier to understand the stages that we'll be moving through this.
Got it.
I think I'll jump over to the exhibit, that first sheet on that. And we can jump to any other plan sheets, but I figured this would be the easiest one for us to visualize our resource area boundaries here. So in solid green is the bordering vegetated wetland boundaries. We have the A series to the north and to the east there. This is a segment of our B series. So the solid yellow line work going outward from that green wetland boundary, we have the 50-foot, the 75-foot, and the 100-foot buffer zones in solid yellow. In the blue line work is that mean annual high water boundary to the perennial stream in the northern portion of the site. And then the dashed green line work is going to be the inner riparian zone, and the dashed yellow is going to be the 200-foot riverfront area. So as we can see from this footprint, before I get to the northern part of the site, that's the more complicated overlap of everything. Southwest and the east portions of the site are within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. We have some work extending into the 75-foot buffer zone in the southwest, and some extending into the 50-foot on the east as well. However, those portions of the project are all improvements to the existing entrance and egress from the site. So any work within paved areas is not going to extend any closer to the bordering vegetated wetland boundaries than existing conditions. It's essentially going to just improve the degraded pavement in sight, and in some of these areas, sort of reconfigure it to accommodate the new circulation that's going to accommodate the students here. So in the northern portion of the site, where we have the 100-foot buffer zone and interior buffer zones overlapping with the riverfront area, the portions of the project located within those jurisdictional areas includes our athletic field and the 6-foot wide asphalt path, the stormwater outfall that Steve described earlier in his discussion, a portion of the parking lot expansion in the northern portion of the site, and grading associated with all of those features. I think what I'll talk about first is the buffer zone impacts. The parking lot expansion does extend partially into existing vegetated portions of the 75-foot and 50-foot buffer zone. Approximately 26 square feet within the 50-foot buffer zone, and approximately 318 feet within the 75-foot buffer zone. That 318 square feet accounts actually for the parking lot and the small segment of the walking path that goes into the 75-foot. In total, there's 344 square feet of naturally vegetated buffer zone that will be impacted by these impervious areas. Within the restoration area that we're proposing in the 100-foot buffer zone, approximately 3,222 square feet of that is in the 100-foot buffer zone. So we're looking at about a 1-to-9 ratio of impervious area to the restoration area in the 100-foot. The stormwater outfall itself, any permanent impacts associated with that activity are located outside of the 50-foot no disturb or no build zone that would be associated with any stormwater outfall, stormwater design features. So the structure itself is outside of that municipal buffer zone. However, we have about 31 square feet of temporary impacts in the 50-foot buffer zone to accommodate construction access. So the project includes restoration of any of those areas with a native wildlife conservation seed mix that's proposed in our restoration area as well. Again, any grading that's shown, any considered pervious areas is other than the 300 plus square feet for the parking lot are within existing lawn area. And just hopefully briefly going into riverfront area, I'm sure we're ready to ask questions, but the riverfront area is one of the more tricky resource areas we had to configure here. Do you want to go to the third sheet? That's great. So the aerial image I shared earlier that showed that the school sort of spans or is entirely encompassed in this parcel and only extends into this small segment of a huge parcel at 90 Hayden Row. The riverfront area calculation for overall riverfront area on the site, technically in accordance with the regulations, should be accounting for the total riverfront area on both 90 and 104 Hayden Row Street. But considering that the development with this school is very consolidated into this area, and it seemed a little expansive to utilize all of the riverfront area that's located on 90 Hayden Row, what we did is we drew a straight line between the western extent of our mean annual high water boundary to the western extent of our limit of work, or where it was identified that sort of development associated with the school property itself sort of ended and then became development associated with other portions of the site. So from that line east to the eastern end of 104 Hayden Row, the smaller parcel, is how we calculated that overall riverfront area. And it's shown in blue as far as where the portion of riverfront area that we're not proposing any work in. Anything in green, blue, pink, or yellow is included in that overall riverfront area calculation, but the purpose of this image was to also share sort of how we divided out other calculations for work within riverfront area. So in pink, we have our restoration area shown, and in yellow, we have the stormwater components. And restoration and stormwater are not included in the calculations to determine if your project meets the performance standards for work within riverfront area. So we excluded those calculations from that, and ultimately only included what's in green, which is areas that we're going to be grading and creating pervious areas, and the darker blue is the impervious areas, parking lot, walking path that's within the 200-foot riverfront area. So all in all, our total riverfront area that we calculated for the site is 135,302 square feet. So in accordance with the regulations, you can propose work within either 5,000 square feet or 10% of that, whichever is greater. So the 10% would be 13,530 square feet. And ultimately, the combination of our green and blue colors of our work footprint totals 10,924 square feet. So we are under that 10% threshold. And considering this methodology to determine the overall riverfront area for our site, it's quite a conservative approach. Considering if we used the riverfront area for the entire larger parcel, we'd have much more square footage to work with if we were going with 10%. So going with what's more appropriate for the site itself, we're still underneath the threshold and in compliance with the regulations for that. I'm sure I could keep going on forever about riverfront area.
I think we're good with that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to explain that a little further because it gets a little complicated, but ultimately, you know, we have the restoration area within the riverfront area as well to provide mitigation. And ultimately, you know, designing this project in an effort to minimize impacts to riverfront area, comply with all the performance standards, and provide mitigation to improve conditions on the site as well. So, yeah, I'm just gonna pass it on to you guys now.
All right. Well, it's a nice design. When I went to middle school, there were 3 swings, a slide, and it was full of asbestos and lead paint, which is probably why I'm as dumb as I am. But, Joe, do you want to go through your comments?
Sure. As you're aware, I've been on site a few times associated with the filing of the MRED and did review the delineations. I did do a quick stop out recently just to take a look at things for the notice of intent filing. But my comments are primarily with respect to what was filed with the narrative and the application material. Just a minor thing, the application refers to erosion control barriers variously as compost socks alone or compost socks with silt fence, and we're just looking for clarification as far as what's proposed. The area that's proposed as restoration, it's noted in the narrative that there is some invasive species present there. And I recommended that the applicant provide some additional information on how the invasive species will be dealt with in that area as far as removal and disposal. The alternatives analysis I thought was pretty well done. I think it's pretty clear there's not a lot of different alternative locations for some of what's being proposed. I thought they could be a little bit stronger in maybe indicating what other locations were at least looked at and why those didn't work, rather than more of a blanket statement that other locations were not feasible. The riverfront area, how that was determined wasn't clear to me from the narrative, but that comment on that is, that generally you're looking at the riverfront area on each lot. And we have 2 lots here, so I think the numbers should be split for each lot. Obviously, you're not gonna be anywhere near the 10% on the larger lot, I would think. And maybe, add or over that on the smaller lot. And those should be looked at, and the numbers, I think, divided, for each lot to make sure that the performance standards are being met. I also noted that the walking path, the ADA compliant walking path, was described tonight as a 6-foot wide path. In the application, I saw it referred to, I think, variably as 6 feet wide and 4 feet wide. So that should be clarified again, and if any changes need to be made based on the impact area numbers, that should be revised. I also noted that the tables, there's a table, buffer zone impact tables, 1, 2, and 3 that were in the submission. It was clear that table 3 corresponded to the previous riverfront area, sheet 3, I think, that showed the colored riverfront area and the impact areas. The tables 1 and 2, it wasn't so clear, the colors seemed to be different, and I didn't know exactly what plans those referred to. So I was requesting that those also be submitted just to clarify those tables. There were a couple of typographical errors which, you know, the affidavit of service being referenced as an ANRAD. I think it was just a failure of previous filing. But the text of the abutter notification did correctly identify the work as a notice of intent. On the site plans, I did notice that there's a reference to using geotextile matting on steep slopes. Just recommend that that either be conditioned or noted that the matting should not contain any plastic netting. There's some talk a little bit tonight about some sequencing and phasing. I thought that that could be beefed up a bit as far as including some narrative on the phasing proposed for the project. Also, the plan could show any stockpile locations that may be required. The plan does not indicate any permanent immovable barriers. The commission might want to discuss if there's appropriate PIBs for the project. And I think my final comment was with respect to the proposed restoration area. There are cultivars of native species proposed for planting in that area. I would recommend that, at least for the restoration area, only non-cultivars be used. The commission discussed if only straight species be considered for planting within any of the resource areas. That's it for my comments.
So Joe, is a portion of the site in the Charles River outstanding water resource area?
I don't believe so. Let me see, I can double check my note here.
Okay, how is that in your comments?
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to confirm that with you.
The extreme southwest.
Extreme southwest, okay, yeah, the extreme southwest portion of the Hopkins School parcel is within a Mass GIS map, outstanding resource water as it lies within the public water supply watershed of Echo Lake and the Charles River. So,
But there's no development on that part of the
Okay.
site, correct?
Right.
So it's probably down here.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, okay, good. So, just to clarify on the alternatives analysis, you know, if we can just get maybe a little bit more detailed, you know, narrative of some of the different options you look at. We're not asking you to go to the drawing board and, you know, reevaluate things. You know, if we can just kind of provide a little bit more robust of a narrative, that would be helpful. You know, maybe a few paragraphs. Project sequencing and phasing plan, I thought needed to be, you know, that's something that we're gonna wanna look at, and we'd like to see those as, you know, fairly detailed. That doesn't have to be addressed at this point, I don't think, but, just so that, you know, that is something that the commission looks for. And then again, the PIBs and the stockpile locations need to be identified. Those were the comments I had. Kim, did you want to go through any of the DEP comments on the phosphorus?
Yeah, so I guess, wanted to point out that DEP did have some technical comments, mostly related to stormwater, TSS removal credit, peak to, standard 2 for peak discharge. You know, if you guys could address those at the next.
Okay.
Or if you wanted to run.
I'll open up to
not
questions.
Water engineer.
I could certainly address them now. There was one, it was actually a very good point, and something that we're gonna remove with street sweeping is counted towards the TSS removal. It does need to be done every month, probably not feasible, so we're gonna take that out, and we still need the 90% TSS removal. We'll take another look at the overall detention. We are meeting it for the overall site. We'll make sure we go through each point of analysis and make sure it's meeting in accordance with DEP. And the other one was,
Infiltration, separation from groundwater.
yes.
Full text that they're referring to?
Right, so we do have, we've done, and actually I didn't mention this during my presentation, we did do on-site soil testing. We found various groundwater elevations. The best, if you could, yep, perfect. So the orange are the deep hole test pits that we did. Further south and right around the geothermal wells, we found some higher ledge in that area, so that made us move everything to lower areas and a little bit closer to the riverfront area. Still staying out of that. The northwest test pit was one of the better ones that we found with a separation of groundwater. So we are within that, I guess that 4-foot separation of groundwater. We are meeting the 2-foot separation. We'll include a groundwater modeling analysis with the next submittal.
As it relates to separation from groundwater, were there any test pits actually done in the footprint of the infiltration basin?
There weren't, because we're moving it around. We fully expect the one in the northwest is at the same elevation as you move across to the eastern portion.
How about the ones to the east of the infiltration basin? Was that similar separation or similar depth to groundwater?
It was similar depth, but it was at a higher elevation. So the overall net or delta between the two is about the same.
Yep. So you guys did an analysis to basically draw the line from test pit to understand where the groundwater
Correct,
depth is
correct.
in the footprint?
Yep.
Sound okay to you?
Yeah, I mean, the handbook technically requires test pits to be done within the footprint of the infiltration area.
Hey, what happens if you run into a problem with that?
During construction.
It's a good point. I mean, when we were out there, we were poking around to see what did work. You know, if it's something where, you know, we obviously, if we move it further off to the northwest, and at that point, we didn't really know where the 200-foot, the outer riparian zone was. So once we started to design, we wanted to make sure we were tucking it in and keeping it at, you know, an elevation where we could drain everything to it.
Can we put a pipe there as a monitoring well when we do the borings? We're unrelated to this effort. We're gonna be doing some borings in the ledge area so that we have a better understanding of the ledge's impact on the overall addition construction. So we will be on site towards the end of next week with a boring rig. So it would be fairly easy, I would think, to just drop a PVC pipe as a monitoring well to understand groundwater in that area.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. I'd do a soil boring and put the monitoring well in. So the soil boring will confirm the Rawls rate that you guys are using, and then the monitoring well will let you get a better feel for where groundwater is.
Yep. It's a great idea. We've done it on many sites that way, and that way we actually have some historical data to go back and check.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
So you just let me know where
Sure.
and how deep and size.
Okay.
Is one gonna be enough?
They're gonna be out there. We can certainly do 2, one at each end.
Yeah, I mean, two would be preferred.
Okay.
If they're gonna be out there and it's not that big of a deal to put a second hole in the ground. That would be more in line with the requirements in the handbook.
They don't go that deep, so it's not like you have to drill down 20, 30 feet.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have the drill rig, so we're just drilling
Okay.
a ton of holes to
Okay.
find out
Yeah.
where the ledge is.
Most of the other
You can
holes are
see the
just to
profile.
identify the depth of ledge. It's not trying to do geotechnical, we've already done that.
Yep.
Wanna know where the ledge is.
And if there's a test pit to the west that's got favorable soils and favorable groundwater conditions, you know, if it comes back that there's poor conditions in this location, you can always
Adjust
push
it.
the infiltration basin west and extend the pipes. But from a cost savings perspective and you know, keep the footprint nice and tight, closer to the parking lot, the better off it is.
Is the elevation of the field getting raised, or how it looks, is that higher?
It
than
is,
right now?
yeah, I believe it's a slight cut. It's a slight cut. It's going down a little bit lower. I think it was like less than a foot, maybe 9 inches. It's going down.
And the existing stormwater is there an existing stormwater infiltration basin in the north corner?
So,
and the west?
yes, so there's a detention basin in the north corner and the west that was done as part of the original design and construction back in late 90s.
So is that one coming out, or is it still there? Is it being maintained?
No, one thing we were trying to do is maintain as much of the on-site infrastructure as possible. Those detention basins they're still operating, still working, so we wanted to, you know, continue to use that treatment and that storage, you know, for the site, so we're not taking anything out. We were really focusing on the western portion and then the field, and trying to contain that to just a new system. And then reconfiguring all the new stuff there, and then the existing stuff will continue to go to the west and north basins.
While we're on the topic of stormwater, has there been any consideration about educational signs as part of this project? We've got some great stormwater components here. You've got riverfront area, be a really good opportunity for school-age children, especially at Hopkins, where they're at an age where they'll really start to be able to understand this stuff, to incorporate some educational features.
Yeah, I think you're gonna restore the area where they go and play in the woods right there and build like things, so maybe they wanna know where the.
Rain garden's a
there's
great opportunity.
Yeah, there's a rain garden, there's an infiltration underground system, there's a detention basin, you've got riverfront area, you've got buffer zone. There's a lot of really great opportunities to just have little placards that, you know, help the students understand what's out there, what's on their, you know, school grounds. And it gives teachers an opportunity to
Actually,
maybe
it
do
would
some
be
outdoor
good
classroom.
to, explain what a PIB is. Put the
Yeah,
logo on
that
there
too.
so
Yep,
they
yep.
grow up knowing, put
Yep.
that in
Yep.
into their vocabulary.
Did you say that the wells for the geothermal were already done?
We have done one geothermal well as a test well
Okay.
to establish the metrics of how many wells we would need, what the energy use of, or the calculation of how many wells overall you need to support the building. So we did complete one well in that area. I think it currently has like a landscape box on top of it. The remainder of the wells would be done as part of the construction.
How many wells do you need?
We believe it's 35.
So that it's out of jurisdiction, so this is.
Yeah, exactly. There's great opportunities here.
So they're gonna need a lot of water, and there's gonna be a lot of slurry, right?
They're gonna make a lot of water, coming out of the ground. As part of it, I think, the peak flow was something like 30 gallons
Yeah.
when they were doing it.
Yeah.
They did have a tank on site to manage that.
Yeah, we'll have frac tanks on site to
Okay.
manage all that.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, understanding kind of what's gonna happen with all that water and where the water to support the drilling is gonna come from. We just don't wanna avoid, I know you guys wouldn't do this, but wanna avoid a hose going in the river, getting pumped, so to speak. But shockingly, contractors do these kinds of things sometimes, so.
Help you pretty bad.
I've seen it.
Lose my job. Now, we'll have frac tanks and, have it set up, and you guys certainly will come monitor it and check it out.
All right, any other commission comments or questions? Questions or comments from the audience? That was a great presentation, you know, a lot of information to digest, but, looks like a great project and, you know, looks like you guys did a lot of upfront work on this, so we appreciate it.
Great. I just had one question for you, with the PIBs. Is there a preference from the commission on what we would work with at the school like this? I don't know if boulders would be appropriate for the kids, whether they'd want to play on them or not, or we want to keep them from hurting themselves. Do you prefer the placards?
We did at the Marathon School, I think, we have a lot of them that we just put on posts, you know, placards all through the area, so, I mean,
So we should have them soon, they're being manufactured, the placards to provide. And then in terms of what to affix them to, the commission has been flexible traditionally and, you know, how you wanna do that. If you have some mature trees, if you have some placards. Okay.
yeah, we've done a couple different ways, I think,
Yeah.
mostly I put them on signposts essentially
Yeah.
in the ground, at Marathon School, but
Okay. We can talk it through and we'll put it on the plan so it's clear where they should be going.
Awesome.
Great.
All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you
evening.
all.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Oh, yes, Jeff.
Get your sheets. Oh, yeah, if I can get a motion to continue to, so our next meeting is, April 30th. Does that give you enough time?
Yeah, let's continue to April 30th. If we need some more time, we'll ask for another continuance.
Okay, the meeting after that's May 21st, so. Okay, so if we can continue, if I can get a motion to continue to April 30th, please.
I'll make that motion.
In a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Okay. So moving along on the agenda.
So Jeff, when you were complaining about your school, the fifth grade I went to school and it was three-story wood frame building. The sixth grade was a two-story wood frame building.
I know, we're dating ourselves, Ed. Okay, so the next hearing is Logan, 30 Lakeshore Drive. This is a notice of intent for, single-family home improvements. Or site improvements. Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 9th, 2024 at 7 o'clock at the Hopkinton Senior Center, 28 Mayhew Street, to hear all persons interested in notice of intent filed by Ralph Logan to perform site improvements. Location is 36 Lakeshore Drive. Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry about your Boilermakers.
Yeah, that was a tough loss last night, which is why I had the dark circle there. Well, thank you. My name's Drew Logan. I'm owner at 30 Lakeshore Drive. I'm along with my wife Tracy back in the back of the room here. And I think most of you probably know Mr. Markadant. And I also have my landscape partner here from Newview, Ryan DeWolf. Maybe I'll just kind of kick it off with a really high-level overview of the proposal, and Dave can get into some of the details. But there's essentially two elements to our proposal. The first is, if you direct your eyes to the north side of the home, you can see there's a driveway that extends from Lakeshore Drive on the east all the way down to the lake, serving as a boat ramp, and that slopes, pretty good down towards the lake. That driveway and boat ramp, I estimate, is probably about 40 years old, so it's just starting to fail. There's elements down towards the lake that are raised cracks. In fact, my niece broke her toe on it last summer, so she'd be really happy if I fix this. So it needs to be fixed. But in addition to just replacing it, I actually think we can improve it. You'll see about the last 50 feet going nearest to the lake, rather than replacing that with concrete as it is today, I would like to propose we put two 24-inch strips of cobblestone on each side of what is now the driveway, and then fill in the 6 feet in the middle with a strip of grass. That will not only beautify the property, but also the rainwater runoff coming from the lake is pretty extensive right now. And I think would really improve the runoff into the lake. So that's kind of element one of the proposal. The second involves the south side of the house. There are currently 3 existing stone patios that are at 3 different levels, so it's terraced to the lake. Again, the house was, well, it was a 1940 home, and then it was built up in the late 80s. So those patios, at least the 2 closest to the lake, are likely the same age as that driveway, probably 40 years old. And so this proposal would be to put a new retaining wall in nearest the lake, which would actually bring the 3 terraces to 2. And what that will give me is a much more usable area. Those 2 areas close to the lake are pretty small. There was an old shed that was falling down that we've recently removed, and so it's really just again to build over the existing patios, going from 3 terraces to 2. That's the extent of my overview.
That's pretty complete, yeah. So we have a wetland, BVW on the north side, flags 1 through 6, going from right there, right along there, to there, all the way to our little bridge. And then we have a series of retaining walls along the lake that are acting as bank. So we have a series of other patios, fire pits, stairways, retaining walls. So as Drew had mentioned, we're replacing the old concrete with bituminous concrete. The driveway will be slightly, the boat ramp will be slightly narrower than what's there now. And the new retaining walls down on the patios is retaining walls on 3 sides, up to the same level as the existing patio closest to Lakeshore Drive.
All right. And, part of the work has started. I guess there was a misunderstanding, and you thought that you didn't have to file because it was, a certain distance away from the commission member. So part of this isn't after the fact, but, that happens a lot with folks on the lake, so it's not a big deal. We're just happy that, you brought it forward to us, and we can get it permitted. So, thank you.
That's correct. Yep, the patio portion. Nothing's been done with the boat ramp.
Okay. So I will, Joe, did you have comments that you want to go
A few
through?
comments. Go out and take a look at the site, take a look at the wetland delineation. So I thought the flags 1 through 6, had no issues with those. They all looked accurate. As was just noted, the retaining wall along the lake functions as bank. That is not labeled on the plan as far as I can tell. I would recommend that that be labeled on the plan. It also appeared that the buffer zone from the bank was drawn from the back side of the bank, it looked like, and not the front side. It means only a couple of foot difference, but it should probably be revised if that's the case, just to be accurate. The proposal described erosion control barrier consisting of silt fence and a wattle. Currently, there's only just the wattle, so silt fence should be added just in keeping with what was proposed. Also, the lake has a Zone A flood zone. In the past, in the projects that we've had on the lake, we've requested that the Zone A be indicated graphically on the plan. Typically, it falls within the lake, away from the bank, but we'd recommend that be added. The plans do not show the no disturb zone or the locations of any PIVs. Would recommend that be added. Also, a narrative describing the sequencing would be useful, especially with regard to removing the existing concrete boat ramp, and if there's any stockpiling required, any locations of stockpile, again, would be useful. And just a general note, adding a scale to the plan is helpful, just when trying to get measurements off the site plan. And then, as again with other projects on the lake, there's an existing boat ramp and the seawall, or the retaining wall, which would be subject to a Chapter 91 license. Not aware of any status of a Chapter 91 license, but as in the past, we would request that the applicant provide information on if there is a current Chapter 91 license or if one will be applied for. And other than that, I didn't really have any other issues with the filing.
To jump in? Yep. Was your wetland probe that you did near Flag 6?
Yes.
We located the probe. It's 3 feet off that existing retaining wall. We called that flag number 5A. So we have a new wetland delineation from 1 through.
Okay, I see a flag there.
Yep.
I did, actually, excuse me.
Yep, yep.
I did overlook that with regard to the delineation.
Yep.
Flags 1 through 6 were fine. I did see hydrosoil upgradient of the retaining wall along the lake, and it was variable from roughly a foot to roughly 4 feet off the wall. So I just
Yeah, we don't have a problem with it. It doesn't change the buffer zone line as well, based on that line, because of all the other angles of the.
coming off.
Exactly.
Coming off.
You can see that, yeah. So.
I think it might influence, that applies to the entire retaining wall along the lake.
Yep.
So it might bump the buffer zone up on the south portion of the.
The 50-foot buffer zone goes slightly towards the lake, and we did a calculation that, based on all the different angles of using the new labeled bank as the face of the retaining wall on the water side of the retaining wall, it only affects minimally the buffer zone by about 4 square feet. Okay, so then we've added flag number 5. We've labeled the plan as bank. And we also have done the research, the 100-year flood, the flood zone, and you're right, it does fall in the water. We took it a step further and have determined the height of the water based on the dam. And it falls to right at the footing on the northern edge of that retaining wall. It's right at the interface of that footing face of the retaining wall. So everything is lining up quite nicely. That 15-inch oak, that 28-inch oak, and the 24-inch oak now has a medallion on the tree. We have no trees going further east towards Lakeshore Drive behind the shed. And then we have that big bush at the corner of the shed, but there's no other trees between the shed and Lakeshore Drive. So we didn't put any medallions currently in that location.
I'm sorry, so this one, and this
And,
tree, or?
nope, the one down by the bridge, the 15-inch oak,
Okay.
right there, yep.
Is that brook like continuously running or is it intermittent? It's continuous? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a storm drain that comes out right at the top.
Yeah.
The town drains into it, and then it's an old swale
Yeah.
that goes from southeast all the way to the catch basin, through the catch basin, through the culvert.
Okay, yep, I see it
into
there.
the-
There is an upstream one on this side.
Yeah.
Cause I had the same question, like, is this just drainage, but it's jurisdictional.
There's the swale, there's Drew's lot right there in yellow. You can see that swale that's feeding it.
Yeah.
So Drew owns just on the other side of the brook. That's from the 20s.
So that's the original.
That is
what kind of
crazy,
neighborhood
isn't it?
It's really cool to see. I have a copy of
Yeah.
that too.
I mean, you can set like a tent up on each of those parcels, that's about it.
Be wide and some of them are 25.
Okay, questions, comments from commission members? Questions or comments from the
I do
audience?
have a quick question.
Yep.
In terms of, I think it's great that you're doing the cobble with the lawn in the middle. I think that's a great upgrade. In terms of where it begins and ends, can you help me understand the decision-making around that? And, you know, it'd be great to have a detail showing what that cross-section looks like.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, if you go to one of the pictures, Kim, I might show, it's really where they're pretty big concrete slabs right now, and there's a natural break where the slope really starts to go, towards the lake.
Yeah.
About where that jet ski is there, if you can see it. Yeah, see that right there? It's either that slab, I think that's the slab right there, yep.
There's a staircase there, the stairs down, and the stairs in, and then the idea is to put it right below on the water side of the propane tank. That's where the division is.
Still give plenty of parking, but then really kind of in the backyard, make that a lot more pleasing to that.
Yeah, my only request would be just a cross-section of what that cobble looks like, just to help us understand the stability of it.
Like the underlayment of the cobblestone, is that what you mean?
Yeah, what the size of the stone is, what the the depth of it is, if there's any sub-base to it. Given it's a slope going down to the lake, you don't want the cobblestone all washing out down into the lake.
Yeah, for sure.
God, without sailing ships empty, where do we get cobblestones these days?
I don't know if it's gonna be cobblestone. I haven't gotten that far, actually.
That's right.
Or paver, yeah.
So the chair, so there seems, so south of the existing concrete ramp, there seems to be a lot of pavers right up to the edge of the lake, so I didn't know if somewhere maybe north of the existing concrete ramp along the edge of the lake, we could maybe get some shrubs or like filtering prior to water flowing into the lake? Sort of what we've been doing on some other sites around the lake.
So north of the existing, sorry?
See, there's shrubbery on the right as
Yeah,
you drive
like
down.
Oh, there, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yep.
it seems like on the other side of that ramp on the south side, there's a lot of just pavers that go right up to the edge of the lake. So I didn't know if maybe we could get sort of like a little buffer strip of shrubbery to.
That portion is pretty flat, and the actual seawall is above the grass. So there's not really any drainage into the lake there. It's a very flat area on that north side. So I understand your request, but I'm not sure it would accomplish a whole lot in terms of drainage and runoff, if that's the intent of the question or the comment.
Through the chair?
Yes,
I
Kim?
did notice that the roof runoff, I noticed this when I was on site, kind of pipes down and then comes straight down this ramp, and into the lake. So I know that obviously we're gonna replace some of this with pavers. I just didn't know if that might be an area where we could do improvement instead, like if you had an opportunity for a dry well, or if you could turn this around and we could have a little planting area. Just something to capture that clean runoff.
That seems easy, yeah.
So that, we keep the clean runoff clean and slow it down on its way to the lake.
Do you have room at the downspout where that retaining wall is there and the tree? Could you take it across the street, across the driveway, into the right side?
We could.
Just.
When we tear the driveway up?
Yes.
Figure something out, what about a rain bucket or something, is that another option or something? That's.
Sure. I'll put it in the middle of the.
I mean, if you can make it kind of go off to the right there, Drew, if that's easier for you. We don't want you to undertake a massive, engineering project here, and run it across the driveway, but, the intent is just to prevent it from running down the new driveway into the lake during the lake.
I'm sure we can come up with something that would be satisfactory, yeah. It's easy.
Okay,
We still don't have a DEP number as of 5 o'clock.
yeah, okay. And we have a couple Ts that need to be crossed and Is dotted, so, all right. Okay, any other questions or comments? So if I get a motion to continue this to our next meeting, which is the 30th,
So moved.
and a second, please. All in favor? Aye, opposed? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Okay, continued hearings. Let's see, D'Angelo, 12 Maple Street Extension. This is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna collect.
I can handle getting up, it's all right. I gave both of them. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening, folks. My name is Chris Frateroli. I'm a wetland scientist with Goddard Consulting. We're here tonight talking about 12 Maple Street Extension. It's just an ANRAD, and thankfully it was pretty straightforward. Joe and I were out there together about 2 weeks ago to walk the line. We took, I don't know, dozens, if not hundreds of soils. So the gist of it is, I will wait for a site plan up here. Yeah, it is. Yep. So shown in blue on this marked up version of the site plan, we have about 518 linear feet of BBW boundary, and the green shows about 356 linear feet of inland bank. Those are kind of areas where the water channelizes and forms somewhat of an intermittent stream channel. So we thought those were more appropriately characterized as inland bank. We do also have, you'll see in the northeast corner, shown in red, a culvert that goes under Maple Street Extension there that drains the easternmost portion of BBW off along, I've only seen it dry, but what looks more so like an intermittent stream channel at the north of the property boundary there. All in all, Joe and I didn't change any flags. It was, I don't think we had really any disagreements. We took many soils. We found a couple of pockets that looked like they might show some hydric soil indicators, but ultimately nothing conclusive enough to move any flags or identify any additional areas that would qualify as a wetland. So, in general, I think we're pretty much in agreement on the location of flags as they're shown here. There was only one comment issued by DEP, and it was just that the commission should verify the flags in the field. So, I think that pretty much sums up what we have here. All in all, pretty straightforward, mostly encircled by a resource area here.
All right, thank you. Joe, do you concur?
I do concur. There was just one thing I want to mention, that there was in the southwest corner of the site, a large pile of brush at the edge of the wetland, probably partially in the wetland there. And if you go back and look at some of the aerial photos going back a few years, there you go, you can see the area which looks like it was recently cleared along the western property line. It was just thought that the applicant might describe what happened there, since it's right along more or less the wetland edge.
Absolutely. So I did check in with the applicant on that. They've only owned the property for a couple of years. He said that the property is pretty much exactly as it is when they purchased the property. He's more than amenable to cleaning up that brush pile and getting the area restored. So maybe that's something we can talk about beyond the scope of this ANRAD. But I don't think that really bears to this ANRAD proceeding, but we're happy to work with you on that.
No, that makes sense. We just wanted clarification on what went on there, whether it was recent or.
Yeah, I think it seems like it's been at least 4 years or so from the area, 3-4 years.
Okay.
So, not the current property owner's doing, but, he's happy to work with you and get it straightened out.
Thank you for looking into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, questions or comments from the audience? Or from the commission, excuse me? From the audience? All right, if I can get a motion to close and approve the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 12 Maple Street Extension.
So moved.
And the second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Through
All
the
right.
chair,
Yes.
we have a 3-week jump, could you authorize me to sign?
Yep, and a motion to have Kim sign on behalf of the members present.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, are you new with Goddard?
Just over a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been in front of you guys yet, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure
Nice
this
to
won't
meet
be the
ya.
last.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
So,
In this particular,
okay, moving along, Wall Street Development, 12 North Mill Street. This is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. Good evening, Mr. Petrosi.
Hello there.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no kidding, no, I enjoy it. So as, I understand that, this has been continued, this process has been going on since November. And I decided to come out and see what's going on here because this is rad. So we did apparently submit a revised plan. And so the commission has had that plan, and I see no problems with what we've put in front of the board. I'm more concerned about the amount of peer review that's been ongoing on this project, or on this application, and it just seems a little bit excessive.
So maybe I can provide a little bit of clarification. You know, when we first reviewed what Goddard Consulting had provided to the commission, you know, there was some pretty significant deviations from where the buffer zone was in the wetland delineation, that, I don't know if it was Nicole that was on site that did it, but someone from Goddard did. As compared to what, you know, Joe was seeing in the field, so, you know, that had to be kind of remedied, and adjusted. And secondarily, there was an intermittent stream on site that was not included, in the original delineation.
I understand, I listened to you, I watched the video of the last meeting and stuff. My problem is that in this memo that's dated November 8th, the peer reviewer says, LE evaluated the subject site and found no additional wetland resource areas subject to jurisdiction on the site. So, I understand you had your question about this intermittent stream, but why am I paying for something that your peer reviewer should have indicates on the first time he was on the site that there were no more resource areas under jurisdiction? Why am I responsible for that, those services? That's my point. We went out there and we did it, we did the work, we submitted the plan. This has been going on 3 or 4 meetings. I don't think it's appropriate. This is not like a carte blanche slush fund that the peer reviewer goes out there and then people continue to bring up other issues and we go out. We paid our fees according to your regulations. We're not opposed to paying for reasonable services that the commission requires, but we're not gonna pay for things that are duplicative or should have been handled on the first site visit. So that's the reason why I'm here tonight. I wanna close the hearing and let's move on. But I'm not gonna be paying for services that should have been handled on the first site visit. That's my position.
Through the chair,
Yes, Kim.
I can just
Yeah, can you provide,
speak to this a little bit.
that'd be helpful. I'm just reading through the document here that Mr. Petrosi provided. But go ahead.
So, first of all, the, Town of Hopkinton General Bylaw, Chapter 206, Wetlands Protection, which is the bylaw that, the Conservation Commission operates under, establishes the Conservation Commission's ability to require an applicant pay a filing and or consultant fee for the reasonable costs and expenses borne by the commission in its consideration of the application. And then it goes on to say, a minimum consulting fee is paid at the time of the application submittal. Additional amounts are collected as needed during the course of the review. The second thing I would point out is that the peer reviewer has not reviewed the intermittent stream that was added to the plan that was identified. So there shouldn't have been, there wasn't a duplicative review. I was the one who pointed out to the commission that there was an interior intermittent stream, which I identified when I accompanied the peer reviewer and your consultant on the site walk.
May I speak, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So I understand you brought it up, but my point is, again, we have the peer reviewer go out with our people, review the site, and he says there are no more resource areas on the site, subject to jurisdiction. Now, I'm happy you found this intermittent stream, we located it and whatever, but it's not my responsibility to pay for somebody to go back out to the site. Plain and simple.
No,
It's
okay,
not a
so-
reasonable, I would consider not to be a reasonable,
Yes,
Charge.
I agree with you.
So-
So if it was an oversight on our part during that initial inspection and we missed it, then I agree, we shouldn't be charging, you to go back out.
Well, I also
Because-
think it's probably something that your consultant should have picked up
but
in the field as well, so.
not only that, but the intermittent stream is within the BVW. At the last meeting, as the way I heard it was, your peer reviewer was okay with the delineation of the resource area. What happens, unless that intermittent stream was a perennial stream, it has no bearing on anything else within the wetland, within the resource area. It's completely irrelevant. We shouldn't have even had to go out there and locate it. We did, but it has no relevance to what your jurisdiction is with regard to the delineated wetland. I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me, but if it was perennial, different story, but it's not perennial, it's intermittent, and so it's inside the wetland area, so therefore, there's no additional jurisdiction from the commission. So,
Okay.
and that being
so-
said, Mr. Chairman, I'm not opposed to paying some additional, because he did go out there again and do it, but I'm just saying, it's
No,
$1,600, and I've already paid for it. Does that net out my 480 or no? Or is that
The
1,600?
balance due is 1,170, which includes your $480 deposit.
Okay, so it's net of the 480.
Yep.
So,
So that's still outstanding.
right, so what
And I'd like to just connect with Kim, so we can kind of talk through this before the next meeting. Because I tend to agree with you. You know, I don't think we should need,
we're not opposed to paying for peer review, but if you go out there on the site,
but this is what we've already been out there reviewing.
right,
I do want to point out that the peer review total invoices to date does not include analysis of that stream.
Right. Yeah.
So what's due currently is current based on the work that they've already done. I ordered them pencils down on February 14th.
I understand you put a stop work on it for some reason, but as I said, whether the intermittent stream has no bearing, it doesn't need to be a review.
You're repeating yourself.
Right, I understand.
We're all, you know.
Okay, you're all,
we
I
got it.
understand.
Yeah, we
So that's
understand.
all, you know, if you come up with a reasonable amount, I'm happy to pay some additional dollars.
Yeah, so I think the balance, as Kim says, is still due because that doesn't include going back out to the site to confirm the,
Well, here are the invoices right here, Jeff, I mean, I'm not saying, I mean,
Well, I can't look at them right now, but
Okay, but.
I'll
let's-
continue,
let's
we'll
talk.
continue it to the next meeting,
Well,
and Kim and I will connect.
How about if we close the hearing and we just,
We're not gonna close the hearing.
there's no reason for me to come back. I mean, you guys can
Well, you,
discuss.
yeah, you don't need to come back. The next meeting's a Zoom meeting anyways, so, okay, well, we can talk about it and let you know. You don't have to come before another
Fair,
meeting.
fair enough,
right?
fair enough. But I hope you can appreciate the, you know, I didn't come here because, you know, $500 is important to me.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
important to me too.
So I don't mind sitting here to express my concern.
No, I appreciate you coming to the meeting, Mr. Petrosi, yeah.
I miss
So,
you guys.
I understand.
I miss everything about this.
Thank you
Thanks a lot, I
thank you for
appreciate
your
it.
patience, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. We
Okay.
got, we'll talk about those certificate of compliances too.
Oh, yeah, we just gotta get the full application.
No, we need to negotiate on that. Thank you.
The fees are not negotiable.
Bye-bye.
Motion to
Yeah.
continue?
Yes, if I can get a motion to continue this to the April 30th meeting, please. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Okay. All right. Yes, the fees are non-negotiable. But I do think that, you know, if it was an oversight on our part, then perhaps he shouldn't have to pay for us to go back out and do another site inspection.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
talk about that.
Let's talk about the closed hearing, so.
I haven't been on this site, but looking on this drawing, it's like everything is wet. Do I misread the drawing?
You do not. It's practically flooded. I live right next to it.
Mr. Chairman, are you opening to comments?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bruce Holmgren, I live across the street from that property, 9 North Mill Street. And you're right, it's wet. If you go down there today, you will need boots. It's almost always wet. It may be an intermittent stream, as it was referred to, but it's been running continuously for almost a year now.
Yeah.
There are some months in some years where it will dry up, but just a couple of months ago, we had a 3-inch and then a 4-inch rainstorm. And there's an 18-inch corrugated metal pipe under North Mill Street. It was running almost 2/3 full, a lot of water. It's my understanding that the watershed there is about 50 acres that goes through there. There's upstream ponds, there's a big one on the adjacent street there, Pine Tree Lane. And then there are at least a couple of downstream ponds just off that property in the next lot over. I know because I haven't been over there in 40 years, but my neighbor took my dog out of that pond years ago. It's that deep. So
Yeah.
that site is wet, and
Yeah. So just to clarify, this part of the, you know, the resource area delineation is, all we're doing is verifying the resources that are on the site.
no, I understand that.
So,
I
you know,
I
we're
realize
not saying that it's developable or not developable at this point. You know, the next step would be for the applicant, if they wanted to propose something, to design it and then come before the commission. And, you know,
Understood, but I just want to make the point that it's very wet. I think what's there now is a better reflection of what is actually there in terms of wetlands. And I do know that the folks who came a second time around actually increased the size of the area of the wetlands. It's a big site, but it's more than 50% wetlands on this drawing here.
Yep.
And we're here because we're on record as having, the abutters have had signed a letter to the commission before. And it's a nice site, it's very beautiful, but it's also a problem for at least some of us who habitually have water basements, and if that site floods out, our basements get flooded as well. It's a serious issue there. That's the last piece of property that was a farm years ago. They cut it up into 10 pieces, and that's the only one left.
we appreciate you coming in and letting us know, so that's helpful.
Well, again, I realize what you're trying to accomplish here in terms of looking at what's there, but that so-called intermittent stream is more than intermittent when you get some serious water going.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yeah, you may.
My name is Harry Goodfriend. I live at 3 Pine Tree Lane, right just off of that site. And when it is wet, as it is now, the water will actually come up Pine Tree Lane and give me problems. And I'm at the dead end at the cul-de-sac at the other, adjacent to Mr. Holmwood's property. So I see it visually, and I have it in the basement, and it's a problem. And I think anything that might disturb that and create more water is going to be a bigger problem.
Yeah, you can see that stream now if you just drive by. It's there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep, thank you for coming in. All right, Kim, anything else?
That does it.
Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Ted, you were very quiet tonight.